Putin is turning us off from our relatives. This is what we'll talk about today. Hello there, I'm Elena. Welcome back to my channel, Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share my videos. Let's make truth available for everyone. I'm still in France and I'm filming from Europe. So horrible things are happening in Russia. This video will be a little bit of update on Russia, Ukraine, the war, and maybe some other countries as well. So unfortunately, from one side, my trip is going really well, and I still continue to travel for a while. And unfortunately, since like August, beginning of September, I lost full connection, all of the connections to my many of my Russian relatives, to my parent, basically, because Putin simply shut down the cell service. At least from abroad, from where I am, in several different places. I travel all over several different regions of France, for example, and some other places I'm traveling. So basically, Russians are slaves, and the little goblin from Kremlin, a little dwarf, gonna tell them, will they talk to their daughter, will they talk to their grandchildren, and so on, or not. It's not up to them to decide. It's up to the big boss to decide, will they talk to their relatives or not. So we completely lost connection. The only connection I still have is with one of my other relatives who has a house phone, not a cell phone, and talks to some Russian people is just insane. That propaganda is so bad there that they still believe in him. I guess it's an elderly relative who doesn't really leave the apartment and not going anywhere and only watching TV, which is complete lie, made up story. It's kind of like in the USSR when people, but at least in the USSR, people didn't have access to internet, to computer, to anything. Like I have lived in USSR, I have lived in Russia. In over 20 years, I live in Canada and travel the world. Like right now, I'm traveling in Europe. What I can tell you that now, with all the access to all the information, it's just hard to believe that people can brainwash other people so much that they believe in all that nonsense. For no reason, Putin started the war in Ukraine. Absolutely no reason at all. Murdered already over 1,100,000 something Russian. Like dead, wounded, missing in action, and so on. I presume dead probably now over 500,000 people. Only Russians, not even counting Ukrainians or anything like that. Just Russians. Isn't unbelievable. Russia continue whacking Ukrainian civilians since I left for the trip. Nothing really changed that way. Russia can't achieve anything on the front whatsoever. Right now, Russia controls less territory than in 2022. Ukraine basically drowned a third of Russian fleet. Ukraine is a country without navy whatsoever, and successfully defending itself. Those Flamingo missiles and so on. And now Ukraine find a much better option to basically, they have to stop Russia. They really don't want to get killed. They sick of being bombed. They sick of being killed. And Russia bombing indiscriminately civilians, bombing hospitals every single day. Doing that what's called double tap. So they whack some apartment building, people show up like ambulance, police, I don't know, firefighters, and then they whack them again. Recently, some 15 years old girl was killed, then the boy, and every single day and night, Russia whacking Ukrainian civilians. Far away from the front, 1,000 kilometers from the front, keep basically whacking Ukrainian civilians. This is what Russia does. Unfortunately, Ukraine suffering through all of this. So now Ukraine said, okay, fine, if you bomb our energy infrastructure, we will do that too. And then they hit Belgorod and some other places. But the point is, some other city, the point is, now Russia whacking them and say for Belgorod, like it's some sort of a revenge. They do not have anything to be avenged for. It was completely and utterly Russian choice for no reason whatsoever attack Ukraine in the first place. This war is going on since 2014, and there was no reason for that, and there was no reason for a full-scale invasion either. Absolutely none. Zero. Beside Putin's imperial ambitions. And whoever told you otherwise, either misinformed or lying to you deliberately. I suggest to read the Applebaum book, An Autocracy Incorporation, because autocracies, kind of like Russia, China, Iran, many of them are working together right now for their little czars could stay in power. This is their only goal. This is why the sooner Russia will be defeated, the sooner all that other regimes might collapse and they will not have power. Not in China, not in Iran, not in Europe. That Orban really went overboard lately, already saying that Ukraine not even a country. And this guy is a leader of European country, part of European Union, part of NATO. This is unbelievable. If he represents Hungary, then Hungary should be out of European Union and out of NATO. Because this is completely blowing all the foundation of international law, of anything. Because Ukraine is an independent country. Who doesn't know that? I have a video. Ukraine is a state. You're welcome to watch it. As well as Russia, as well as other countries who were created after the fall of the Soviet Union. They are independent countries. All Ukraine voted for its independence. Every single part of Ukraine, include Crimea and include Sevastopol, big city in Crimea. So basically, we have to understand, we either protect the rule of law and our way of life, or it can come to all of us. If Ukraine not in a country, is a country, why Hungary is a country? Hungary was a puppet of the Soviet Union for years. So let's make Hungary then puppet of Soviet Union again. But luckily, he started to finally realize something. The simple truth is that Putin does not need helpers. He does not need allies. He needs vassals. Like I'm just now visiting French castles and this and that, or European castles. This is how it worked. I am a king and you are a peasant. I am a lord, you are a vassal. I am a feudal, you are my puppet. And only I decide you live or die. Only I decide what's going to happen to you. So he can easily replace every one of them with whoever he wants. He can put a Russian in charge of Hungary, if that's the case will be, that Hungary will be puppet of Russia completely. So I would let them think very carefully. Prigozhin also thought, leader of the Wagner group, that he achieved and brought Russia some sort of victories on the front by throwing the Wagner group and murdering a bunch of people and so on, that he is irreplaceable. Now he's replaced, and whatever he did, his know-how was basically meat wave attacks. Not really his know-how, Soviet Union did it before, but I mean just throwing people at it without even weapons, without guns, without anything. So now taking the prisoners out of jail, throwing them in a meat grinder. This same thing right now is doing Minister of Defense of Russia. They don't need Prigozhin. So Putin knock him down from the sky and kill him. The same thing happened to Boris Berezovsky, Russian oligarch, who put Putin in power because Putin was a useless little bureaucrat who was so gray nobody could actually see him. Nobody thought that he will take that kind of power. So they thought, yeah, we'll put monkey on the throne and then we're gonna pull the string and monkey gonna dance. As soon as monkey get power, they don't need you anymore. That's what Seneca learned. And whoever thought Nero gonna listen to the teacher or somebody, they're not gonna listen. And that's what Soviet Union did in the past. They basically put Russians in charge of all that so-called republics. But the difference is, the republics of the USSR, which was 15 republics of the USSR, and there was Warsaw Pact countries, which were independent countries, but under heavy control of Russia. This was two different things. And Russia and Ukraine was part of the USSR. They were one of the republics. The point is, every republic has its own government. It has somewhat economy and this and that. So when the USSR collapsed, they could become independent countries. Right now, Putin really worked on that. That's not going to happen. So that's why people who are so afraid that Russia is going to fall apart, it's going to be very difficult because He made sure these countries does not have their own economy and doesn't have any own governments and so on. Everything coming to Moscow, and then they get crumbs from the table from Moscow that Moscow will allow them to have. So I hardly will be surprised if Russia will collapse. But the other countries are so afraid of this that I understand that in the past, even Ukraine under Budapest Memorandum give up nukes and stuff. Everybody was so paranoid after Soviet Union collapsed. Everybody tried to preserve it. Russian propaganda says the Soviet Union was destroyed from outside, that other countries wanted to collapse Soviet Union. On the contrary, other countries tried to preserve it because instead of one monkey with a nuclear grenade, they will receive 15 different monkeys. So, several, anyways. So they tried to preserve it. Now they're trying to preserve Russian bloody regime just because they're afraid that a whole bunch of monkeys will end up with nuclear grenades. Guess what? It's gonna happen anyway. If Russia gonna collapse, which I doubt, it will happen anyway. And instead of prepare for that and help decent people come to power in the decent parts of Russia, provide them with something, at least with counter-propaganda or providing more information to the Russian people and so on, providing them something to strive for. And before, United States was a country to strive for. But now with Russian puppet Trump in power, United States basically showed, oh, there is no truth, there is nothing. Everybody wants dictatorship. So this has really hurt the idea that Russia could be independent democratic country and stop attacking other countries. This was very big blow. But the point is, all of those autocracies and incorporation, they only supporting each other because it's kind of aligned with their interests and so on. The sooner Russia collapse, the sooner Putin's regime collapse, not necessarily country collapse, but I mean, the sooner Putin will lose the war in Ukraine, the safer will be Europe, the safer will be Ukraine, the safer will be the whole world, because they would know the way by attacking other countries and taking their land, taking their lives. This is not the way to go. This is not how it's gonna be. This is not working. And so far, it does not work for Putin. His economy is collapsing. His army is basically now on donkeys fighting. And soon will fight with bare hands. So what Ukraine is doing, it's going after oil refineries. Russia with its poor economy, they cannot rebuild them. And soon they're gonna walk. Well, they wanted to live in Middle Ages, soon they're gonna end up there. They will need horses, I don't know what else. Because people who thought, oh, I have propane tank, it's gonna help me out. No, it's not. They will soon run out, they're running out of gasoline. Some of Russians, I've seen videos already, basically taking a pipe and sucking out gasoline out of other people's places. So they basically, this is how it is. They stealing fuel from other people. And this is how it is already in Russia. Crimea, almost half of it already out of gasoline. And the crisis will be only deepened. Then will disappear diesel and propane as well. So I'm sorry to say that my country is turned such a fascist state who put in monuments to Stalin and so on and attacking other countries. I did my best to prevent this from happening. I tried to provide people decent, verified information, which they actually can easily verify themselves. I'm not asking anybody to trust me on word. I provide the facts and proofs and video proofs, include Putin's own words. So you're welcome to educate yourself. Please help Ukraine. Please, and by doing that, you are helping Russia. You are helping Russian people and real Russia. So Russians, what I heard from my Russian relative, basically, a scream, how dare you to questioning politicians? How could you? And it was on the top of her lungs, basically. This is what democratic countries do. We are questioning politicians. We are demanding from them to do what we tell them to do. And that's exactly what Canadian politicians doing for me, because I'm a Canadian citizen. And that's what I demand from my politicians, and that's what they do. This is how democratic countries works. It's not the same as the dictatorships. None at all. I have lived in the USSR, I have lived in Russia, in 2 dictatorships, and I lived over 20 years in democratic country and traveled the world. I can compare. Russia lives incomparably worse. than Canada or any democratic country I have been. Include France, for example. So basically, please help Ukraine, stay by Ukraine, and prevent your countries from sliding into dictatorships. This is way worse than you could ever imagine. Americans will soon find out on their own skin what it's like, because that's where their leaders are marching towards too. And I noticed that shift decades ago, and at least 10 years ago minimum. And I warned them, I told them this is what's happening. But no, they didn't believe me. Unbelievable. But this video is not about the United States mostly, but now it seems like Hungary and maybe Slovakia trying to get their tail between their legs because their little leaders want to stay in power. And if the people in these countries would demand help for Ukraine and so on, that will make their leaders to do so, because they still democratic countries. Not completely, they now have a big shift away from democracy, but they still are so far. So please preserve your democracy. This is the best way of living, and unfortunately the humankind didn't invent anything better than that. I have lived on the other side, and I can tell you for sure this is not how it, this is way worse. You wouldn't believe how much. Well, thank you for watching, and talk to you soon, I hope. See you later.